Hi everyone. I am a couple weeks behind on videos, and I know you're like, oh, didn't you just catch up on a bunch of videos and subsequently post them all in a week? Yes. And so I'm again a couple weeks behind, so I'm going to do a couple recordings here to kind of catch up, and then hopefully I'll be able to stay on track for the rest of the pregnancy. I'm also trying yet another microphone option because I found that when I did all of those recordings right in a row that there was some poor audio quality, I don't know, it was kind of tinny or something. So I'm trying another way, and unfortunately it was the same issue with all the videos because I, of course, edited them all at the same time and recorded them all at the same time. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about my week 16 of pregnancy. For me, main symptoms in the second trimester, for me, it's still fatigue. I'm still really tired, struggling to get full work days in without taking naps, really needing to go to bed at the same time as my toddler. And yeah, so that is what it is. And then nausea, yes and no. Some smells are still really driving me crazy, but I'm not having the constant nausea that I had in the first trimester. Some vomiting, but not so much. So those are all positives. I think I might have mentioned already that I'm having a lot of congestion. So my nose is just constantly running and I'm constantly having a hard time breathing, which of course is leading to some really loud snoring, which is keeping my husband up. So yeah, those are some, I guess, new-ish symptoms. Also, I've been having a lot of back pain. It's still really tender nipples. As I may or may not have mentioned, I'm still breastfeeding our toddler, so I think that that greatly contributes to why I'm having a lot of nipple tenderness even into my second trimester. So at 16 weeks pregnant, the baby is the size of an avocado. I did have a prenatal appointment that week. However, it was a phone meeting because we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic. Though Saskatchewan is starting to reopen, a lot of our services, the midwives are trying to reduce contact with their clients as much as possible, and so they're doing 50% of your appointments in office and 50% over the phone. So my midwife asked how I was doing, asked if my vomiting and nausea had mellowed out at all. The answer is yes, though it's still there. Asked if I was having headaches, which is a common question that they ask because they're trying to see if you may be at risk for preeclampsia. And I have headaches, and I have had headaches in another pregnancy in the second trimester, so I'm not sure if it's just hormonal. One of the things that she said is if I can get in to see a chiropractor this next month, that might help with my headaches, and that is likely something I'm going to do because my headaches are just absolutely terrible. Another thing that she talked to me about was my blood work. My blood work came back all great. The one thing that we're just going to have to keep an eye on is my hemoglobin. It is always kind of right there, just where they want it. So if I dip down later in my pregnancy, when your blood starts to thin even more, I might have to do something about that then. So that's the one thing that was kind of highlighted for me. And then my next appointment will be in person. So that's exciting because then I get to hear the baby's heartbeat again. I don't do any further ultrasounds. My midwife had kind of said some things that would maybe be of benefit from her perspective if I got another ultrasound, but it's my choice and I choose not to. I did some reading at one point in my life about ultrasounds being really disturbing for a fetus. They just don't really like them. They're really noisy, and if you have ever experienced the use of a Doppler. A Doppler does use sound waves as well, and my babies swim away from Dopplers. This happened with Oliver, and this happened with my current pregnancy as well, is when the midwife tries to use a Doppler on me, the baby skids away from it. So that to me says that, okay, well, if a Doppler that is so much less noisy than an ultrasound is kind of troubling my baby, I'm not going to bother with the ultrasound. So I know my video is going a little long, but I do just want to say what my midwife shared with me about the 20-week ultrasound and why, from her perspective, she was kind of, I wouldn't say hoping or advocating for me to have an ultrasound at 20 weeks, but just saying, hey, this is what we're looking for at 20 weeks. So 20 weeks is an anatomy scan. So at this point, they can tell you what the gender of your baby is. They can sometimes tell you beforehand, and they can sometimes tell you beforehand via other mechanisms, such as blood testing. But this is when you would get that ultrasound confirmation of your baby's gender, usually. Kelly and I, my husband, we do not want to know the gender of our baby before our baby is born. And as we have all realized as a society, even when your baby is born with a certain set of genitalia, perhaps they will not embrace that gender as they grow up. So we just don't really think that matters. So we won't be checking that. And the other reason why the midwives were saying that this is sometimes a helpful ultrasound from their perspective is they get to figure out where your placenta is positioned. So if you have like an anterior placenta, or, placenta prevera, I think is what it's called. So anyway, just kind of like unusual positioning of the placenta, which could, either cause decreased sensation of fetal movement, which is something that would kind of, it's not something that's negative or positive. It's just something for people to be aware of, is that if they have a placenta in a certain position, it could affect how much they feel their baby. So again, as I mentioned in another video, when you're doing fetal movement monitoring and you're counting your kicks and you're trying to see like, okay, has baby reduced its movement, those sorts of things can be harder to monitor depending on where your placenta is positioned. I feel my babies really early. That was one of the questions that my midwife asked me was, hey, have you felt fetal movement yet? Absolutely. Almost every day I feel fetal movement for a couple weeks now, maybe even more. And so I just don't really have a concern about that at all. And she also mentioned, like the positioning of the fetus, but that changes so much over the course of your pregnancy at this stage. Like it's so early that it really doesn't matter. It would be more of a concern, later in your pregnancy if for whatever reason baby was, sunny side up or breech or, in just a position that could be awkward for home delivery, which is, again, our preferred method of bringing this baby into the world. So I do want to just touch on fetal movement really quick before I let you folks go. So for me, fetal movement always starts out as kind of a tickling sensation. And it can be like a weird, itchy, almost tickling sensation from your inside out. I usually start feeling that, I don't want to say late first trimester because that sounds like everyone in the comments would be like, no, you don't. But probably in the early part of my second trimester for sure. And then I start to feel like more robust movements towards the middle of my second trimester or later. I have felt, some gentle movements, but not quite robust yet. It is very common not to feel regular fetal movement until much later in your pregnancy. I am a real anomaly. I remember in my first pregnancy at 16 weeks when I told my midwife that I was feeling fetal movement, she was like, I don't think you were. But I can assure you, from my experience with the rest of the pregnancy and this pregnancy, I definitely was. I just, I don't know if I'm really in tune with my body. That's what she said, is that if you're feeling fetal movement, you must be really in tune with your body. Or if it's just the positioning of my uterus and the way my babies sit, I can just feel them early. So anyway, have a wonderful day, and I hope you folks are all staying healthy and well. Talk to you again soon.